There's some wizards, like the Malfoy family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood.
Draco Malfoy is the character that we love to hate in the Harry Potter series.
And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy.
Tom Felton, I feel, was the perfect choice to play the smug bully. He did a brilliant job. Unfortunately, like most characters in the films, the movie series left a lot out about their character. So in this video, I'm going to fill in the blanks as I explain the entire story of Draco Malfoy, as well as touching on the redemption of his family. Draco was born to Lucius and Narcissa Malfoy. Lucius was the Death Eater, right in Voldemort's inner circle, and one of his most trusted allies. Shortly after Lucius joined his crusade, however, Voldemort's reign ended when he fell at the hands of one-year-old Harry Potter. A bunch of Death Eaters were rounded up, including Lucius, but he claimed that he was innocent and that he was acting under the Imperius curse. Because of the connections that the family had in the Ministry that dated back centuries, he was freed, unlike most of his other fellow Death Eaters. Being free allowed for Lucius and Narcissa to live a very good life and raise their son in a very wealthy household. Draco was dearly loved and spoiled by his mother, but his father was rather hard on him and preached to him about the importance of blood purity.
Yes, Father.
Lucius stayed in contact with many other Death Eaters that also escaped capture, including Crabbe and Goyle. They all became close family friends, and both of them had sons that were around Draco's age. He also stayed in contact with Igor Karkaroff, who was the headmaster of Durmstrang Institute. It was a school in Northern Europe that didn't let Muggleborns in. They also taught the dark arts, rather than just defense against the dark arts the way Hogwarts did. Lucius wanted to send Draco there, but Narcissa said no, because she didn't want Draco going so far away. Because of this, they decided to send him to Hogwarts. In order to have some connections at his son's school, Lucius became a Hogwarts board governor. As a kid, Draco heard stories of the boy who lived. Many different theories popped up as to how Harry survived what should have been a lethal attack, and one of the biggest theories was that Harry himself was a great dark wizard. Lucius Malfoy was one of those who believed this theory. It was comforting to him to think that he might have a second chance at world domination. When Draco was going to Hogwarts, Lucius told him to befriend Harry. The family went to Diagon Alley to get his school supplies. Draco was getting fitted for his robes, where he met Harry Potter, although he did not know that it was Harry at the time. He talked to Harry about how Hogwarts shouldn't let Muggleborns in. I really don't think they should let their sort in. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. He also made fun of Hagrid when he saw him in the window, which made Harry dislike him very much. When he went to school, he already had very good friends, Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle, who, as I said before, were family friends. The two looked to him as sort of their leader. When Draco got on the train to Hogwarts, he realized that the boy he had met in Diagon Alley was Harry Potter. He stuck out a hand to Harry after giving him what he believed to be very good advice, doing as his father had wished, to befriend the boy who lived.
You'll soon find out that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort.
Harry denied his handshake.
I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks.
I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go down the same way as your parents. A fight almost broke out after that, but was stopped when Scabbers, Ron's rat, bit Goyle on the finger, making them flee. From then on, Draco and Harry were worst enemies. When Draco informed to his father that Harry was not what he thought, Lucius was very disappointed. When he got to school, Draco was sorted into Slytherin almost as soon as the sorting hat hit his head. He formed a connection with Professor Snape and became one of Snape's favorite students. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle bullied many students, but especially Gryffindors. One day, Draco took Neville Longbottom's Remembrall before Professor McGonagall stepped in. When it came time for flying lessons, Draco was very confident, and so Madam Hooch told him that the way he gripped his broomstick was incorrect, and that he had been doing it wrong for many years. When Neville fell off his broom and was taken to the hospital wing, Malfoy burst out laughing.
Maybe if the fat lad had given this a squeeze, he'd remember to fall on his fat ass.
Draco picked up the Remembrall that he had dropped, and Harry tried to get it back before Draco flew into the air. Harry followed, and they had a standoff. Harry tried to knock Malfoy off his broom, but he got out of the way just in time. Malfoy threw the Remembrall, and Harry chased after it and caught it. Professor McGonagall then came out and took Harry into the castle. Malfoy, thinking that Harry was in trouble, was very pleased with himself. That all changed, however, when Harry got his Nimbus 2000. Malfoy told Professor Flitwick on him for having his own broomstick as a first year, which was against the rules. He was shocked and angry when he found out that Harry had permission to have it, and that he had made the Gryffindor Quidditch team. One day, Draco set Harry and Ron up when they organized a duel at midnight. Ron and Harry, also accompanied by Neville and Hermione, all went out and just barely evaded Filch after Draco had tipped him off. At the Gryffindor vs Slytherin Quidditch match, Ron tackled Malfoy for making fun of him and Neville. He gave Malfoy a black eye. Later that year, Draco overheard the trio talking about seeing Hagrid's dragon egg hatch. Malfoy snuck down and saw the dragon in the window. He had a smile lurking for the next week every time he got near the trio. When Ron was sent to the hospital wing for a dragon bite, Malfoy went there and told Madame Pomfrey that he wanted to borrow one of Ron's books. He laughed at and threatened Ron, saying he was going to tell Madame Pomfrey what really bit him. Ron had told her it was a dog. Malfoy realized that the book he had gotten from Ron had the letter that gave him all the details on how they were getting rid of Hagrid's dragon. He told Professor McGonagall, which ended up getting him in trouble. She dragged him by the ear as she gave him detention. Harry, Hermione, and Neville got detention as well, as they were caught out of bed too. The four had to go into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid for detention, something that scared Malfoy.
We can't go in there.
When they went in, they split up, and Malfoy went with Neville. He played a joke on Neville by scaring him, making Neville shoot sparks in the air for help. Hagrid was furious and made Harry go with Draco instead. The two eventually ran into Quirrell drinking unicorn blood, and Draco ran the opposite direction. Draco was showboating when it looked like Slytherin was going to win the House Cup, but was shut down very fast when Dumbledore added a few last-minute points, making Gryffindor win. That summer, Draco's father took him to Diagon Alley to get rid of a few artifacts that could get him in trouble with the Ministry. He promised Draco that he would buy him a new racing broom. First they went to Knockturn Alley, where Lucius sold all of the sketchy artifacts to a shop called Borgin and Burke's. He gave them everything except for one item, a diary that Voldemort had given to Lucius that he had told him would reopen the Chamber of Secrets. When Lucius and Draco came face to face with the Weasleys, Lucius picked up Ginny's used book and made fun of how poor the family was. Arthur Weasley went after him until Hagrid broke up the fight. When he put Ginny's book back, he added the diary as well. Before they left Diagon Alley, Lucius bought Draco, along with the entire Slytherin team, the new Nimbus 2001 racing brooms to ensure that Draco had a spot on the team. That summer, Draco complained a lot about Harry to his parents, saying he only got on the Quidditch team because he was famous. Lucius said to him, "It is not prudent to appear less than fond of Harry Potter, not when most of our kind regard him as the hero who made the Dark Lord disappear." When Draco arrived back at school, he went back to bullying other students. In the first week, he made fun of Ron for being poor and humiliated Harry by yelling out that Harry was giving out autographed pictures. Weasley would like a signed photo, Potter. It'd be worth more than his family's house. For the Slytherin team's first Quidditch practice with Draco, they had a standoff with the Gryffindor team. They announced that Draco was their new seeker, and Hermione said,
At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent.
This struck a chord with Malfoy, and he replied saying,
No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood.
This caused an uproar, as Slytherin captain Marcus Flint had to step in front of Malfoy to protect him from Fred and George, who jumped toward him, and Ron pulled out his wand, but ended up cursing himself. This made the whole Slytherin team paralyzed with laughter. When the Chamber of Secrets reopened, Draco grinned at the sight of the petrified cat hanging upside down.
You'll be next, mudbloods.
When people started thinking that Harry was the heir to Slytherin and the one opening the chamber, Malfoy got angry at the attention that he was getting.
And people actually think that he's the heir of Slytherin?
In the Slytherin vs Gryffindor match, Harry and Malfoy went face to face, seeker to seeker.
Alright there, Scarhead!
While Malfoy was making fun of Harry, he didn't notice the snitch that was inches above his left ear. Harry started to fly toward him, and for a second, Malfoy thought he was going to attack him. Then Harry caught the snitch. Malfoy was later yelled at by his captain, Marcus Flint. Harry and Draco faced each other in a demonstration duel during a dueling club.
Scared, Potter? You wish.
When Draco saw Harry get a valentine delivered by a dwarf, he said to Ginny, "I don't think Potter liked your valentine very much." After there had been many attacks on students, Draco's father got Dumbledore sacked as headmaster, and Draco was thoroughly enjoying the atmosphere of terror and suspicion in the castle. He was strutting around the school as though he owned the place. He was saying things like, "I'm quite surprised the Mudbloods haven't all packed their bags by now," or, "Bet you 5 galleons the next one dies. Pity it wasn't Granger." At the end of the year, Dumbledore was reinstated as headmaster, and Draco's father was fired as a Hogwarts board governor. When Dumbledore announced that the culprit had been caught and that all of the people that were petrified would be okay, everyone cheered but Draco. On the train for his 3rd year, he, Crabbe, and Goyle came to the trio's compartment that also had a sleeping Remus Lupin. With Lupin being there, it stopped Malfoy from bullying them as he normally did on the train. Later on, Dementors looking for Sirius Black entered the train. Fred and George said that Malfoy came running into their compartment and looked like he nearly wet himself. As they were walking up to the castle, Malfoy overheard Neville saying that Harry had fainted due to the Dementors. Malfoy made fun of Harry for this for many days.
Dementor! Dementor!
Malfoy was really rude to Hagrid during his first Care of Magical Creatures lesson, criticizing his teaching.
Wait until my father hears that Dumbledore's got this oaf teaching classes.
When Harry successfully approached Buckbeak the Hippogriff, everyone but Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle cheered. When Malfoy went up to him, he called him a great ugly brute. Buckbeak then attacked him and hurt his arm.
Oh, that's killed me! It's killed me!
Madame Pomfrey fixed it very easily, but he said he was still in agony. He and the other Slytherins blew the whole incident way out of proportion. Malfoy milked his injuries as much as he could. When he returned to classes that Thursday with a bandaged arm, all of the Slytherins acted as though he was a hero. He also used his injury to get the Slytherin Quidditch team out of playing in the rain and wind, making Gryffindor play Hufflepuff instead. When Draco was paired with Harry and Ron in potions, he said to them with a smirk on his face, "Seen your pal Hagrid lately? I'm afraid he won't be a teacher much longer." It was then announced that there was a sighting of Sirius Black, the escaped convict that was after Harry. Malfoy saw this as a good opportunity to get into Harry's head and refer to Sirius betraying his late parents. He looked right at Harry and said, "Of course, if it was me, I'd have done something before now. I'd want revenge. I'd hunt him down myself." When Gryffindor was playing Ravenclaw, Draco, Crabbe, Goyle, and Marcus Flynn all dressed up as a Dementor, and they went after Harry as he was about to catch the snitch. Malfoy was standing on Goyle's shoulders when Harry used a Patronus on them, making them all fall into a crumpled mess. Professor McGonagall gave them all detention, and even called Professor Dumbledore over. When Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle were in Hogsmeade, Harry, who wasn't supposed to be there, and had gone under his invisibility cloak, started throwing mud at them. Harry accidentally revealed his head for a second, and Malfoy saw it. Malfoy turned around and ran back to the castle to tell Professor Snape that Harry was in Hogsmeade. Harry just barely evaded trouble by getting back in time, which angered Draco. When Malfoy said that Hagrid was pathetic in front of the trio, Hermione smacked him in the face. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle then fled. Malfoy especially was pretty shaken up. For the Quidditch final, Slytherin faced Gryffindor. Before the match, Draco looked even paler than usual. In the match, he followed Harry very closely. When Harry saw the snitch and went after it, Malfoy grabbed the end of Harry's firebolt with his hand and pulled him back. Even though he had gotten a penalty for this, Draco had achieved what he had wanted. He made Harry lose sight of the snitch and keep the game going. Malfoy later dove for the snitch, and Harry followed. Harry threw himself forward, knocked Malfoy's arm out of the way, and caught the snitch, beating Malfoy and winning the Quidditch Cup for Gryffindor. After Slytherin's loss, Draco had seemed very subdued and not his normal self. He regained a lot of swagger, however, when his father used his connections and a few threats to get Buckbeak executed. To both Draco and his father's shock, however, Buckbeak escaped from being killed. They thought that Hagrid had somehow smuggled him out and were horrified and furious that they had been outsmarted by a gamekeeper. In reality, it was actually Harry and Hermione who went back in time to save Buckbeak. That summer, Draco and his parents went to the Quidditch World Cup and were invited to sit in the minister's box because Lucius had made a very generous contribution to St. Mungo's Hospital. When they got there, they saw most of the Weasleys along with Harry and Hermione, who were also invited to the minister's box. Draco shot Harry, Ron, and Hermione a dirty look as he took his seat with his parents. After the match, Draco's father and some other ex-Death Eaters put masks on and began tormenting the Muggle campground owners, making them fly in the air. While this was happening, Draco was calmly on the edge of the forest, looking utterly relaxed compared to everyone else. He was watching the events unfold through a gap in the tree. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione saw him, he gestured toward Hermione and said, "Hadn't you better be hurrying along now? You wouldn't like her spotted, would you? If you think they can't spot a mudblood, stay where you are." Harry accused Draco's parents of being part of the group in masks. Well, if they were, I wouldn't be likely to tell you, would I, Potter? Before Draco went to his 4th year, his father told him about the Triwizard Tournament that was taking place at Hogwarts that year. On the train, Draco made fun of Ron's untraditional dress robes. He also brought up the Triwizard Tournament and made fun of Ron even more for not knowing about it when his father worked for the Ministry. Maybe your father's just too junior to know about it, Weasley. They probably don't talk about important stuff in front of him. One day, Malfoy made fun of Ron's house and called his mother fat. Harry then insulted Draco's mother, and when they walked away, Malfoy tried to shoot his spell at Harry. Mad-Eye Moody, however, acted first.
Oh no, you don't, Sonny!
He turned Malfoy into a white ferret and made him fly up and down. Professor McGonagall showed up and put a stop to it, but Draco was still very shaken by the situation. His eyes were watering with pain and humiliation. When Harry was chosen as a champion for the Triwizard Tournament along with Cedric, Malfoy, along with his fellow Slytherins, sported badges that said, "Support Cedric Diggory, the real Hogwarts champion." Then when they pressed it, the words turned into "Potter stinks." Malfoy handed Hermione a badge and told her not to touch his hand because he didn't want a mudblood sliming it up. Harry shot back and the two took out their wands. Their spells collided and shot in different directions. Harry's hit Goyle, which made boils sprout all over his face, and Draco's hit Hermione, whose teeth started to grow at a rapid rate. Both Hermione and Goyle had to go to the hospital wing. Draco was in shock that Hermione was asked to the Yule Ball. You're not telling me that someone's actually asked that to the ball, not the long-molared mudblood. Hermione got back at him for saying this by pretending to say hello to Professor Moody, which made Malfoy go pale and jump backward, making everyone laugh at him. Draco asked fellow Slytherin Pansy Parkinson to the Yule Ball. During that year, Draco and the other Slytherins talked to Rita Skeeter, who was an animagus that could turn into a beetle at will. They gave her dirt for her articles on Harry, Hermione, and Hagrid. When Hagrid's article was released, Malfoy proudly said, "Well, I think this should be the end of that oaf's teaching career." At the end of the year, Voldemort came back to full power in a new body. When he called all of his Death Eaters, Lucius returned to his master. That same night, fellow Hogwarts champion Cedric Diggory was killed on the Dark Lord's orders. Afterward, when Dumbledore was speaking about his death and gave respectful toasts toward Harry and Cedric, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle didn't even touch their goblets. On the train ride home, Malfoy told Harry that it was happening. "You've picked a losing side, Potter. I warned you. I told you how to choose your company more carefully, remember? When we met on the train? First day of Hogwarts?" When Draco continued, saying that mudbloods and muggle lovers were the first to go other than Cedric, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, and George all hit him with a different hex before he could even finish his sentence. He, Crabbe, and Goyle fell to the ground unconscious. That summer, Draco was made a prefect for Slytherin House, something he greatly abused to torment Harry and many other Gryffindors. On the train, Malfoy warned Harry that he would be dogging his footsteps, hinting to him that he knew about Harry's godfather Sirius being an animagus that can turn into a dog. Draco and the other Slytherins were watching the Gryffindor team practice, and they roared with laughter as they watched Ron train to be a goalkeeper, making his self-confidence very low. Draco continued to make fun of Ron, leading up to the big game where they would face each other. During the match, Slytherin began singing a song that humiliated Ron called "Weasley is Our King." Draco made up many of the lyrics, and even sang along with the crowd. When Harry saw the snitch, Malfoy followed him. Harry got there first, and Draco dug his fingernails into the back of Harry's hand hopelessly. When everyone landed on the ground, Malfoy insulted Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, and later, Harry's dead mother. Harry and George charged at Malfoy, and the two of them beat him as he screamed in pain. When the pair were thrown off by Madame Hooch, Malfoy was curled up on the ground, whimpering and moaning. They had beaten him so badly that Harry's knuckles were bruised from hitting his jaw so hard. Malfoy, along with a few other Slytherins, joined Umbridge's Inquisitorial Squad. They helped rig up Dumbledore's army, the secret club where Harry taught defense against the dark arts in secret behind Umbridge's back. When everyone ran for it, Malfoy caught Harry with the trip jinx and turned him over to Umbridge. When Malfoy was taking his exam, he glared at Harry, making the wine glass he was levitating smash on the floor. Later on, Malfoy and the Inquisitorial Squad caught the trio along with Neville, Ginny, and Luna, as they had formed a plan to break into Umbridge's office. When Umbridge was about to torture Harry, Malfoy had a hungry look on his face. Hermione put a stop to this and lured Umbridge along with Harry to the Forbidden Forest. Malfoy offered to go with them, but she refused his help. She left Draco and the others in charge of guarding Ron, Ginny, Neville, and Luna. When Umbridge left with Harry and Hermione, the four remaining escaped the Inquisitorial Squad with a number of jinxes and hexes. Ron said that Ginny was the best, explaining how she got Malfoy with their famous Bat Bogey hex. When they escaped, they all went to the Ministry of Magic. There, the Battle of the Department of Mysteries took place, where Voldemort was outed, and many Death Eaters were captured and sent to Azkaban, including Lucius Malfoy. The next time Draco came face to face with Harry, he confronted him. "You're dead, Potter. You're going to pay. I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done to my father." Draco then said that his father would escape because the Dementors had left the prison, and Harry replied saying that at least now everyone would know what scumbags they were. Malfoy reached for his wand, but Harry was faster. Malfoy was saved, however, when Snape came over. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle tried to attack Harry on the train, but unwittingly chose to do it outside a compartment filled with DA members that rose as one to Harry's aid. That summer, everything changed for Draco and his family. The famous Malfoy name that had been clean for so long was now tarnished. Both Draco and his mother Narcissa were put in the spotlight, but even worse, Voldemort was now angry with their family. Dumbledore said that Lucius was probably happy to be in Azkaban to avoid Voldemort's wrath after losing the diary, failing the mission in the Department of Mysteries, a mission that he was leading, forcing Voldemort to reveal himself to the world.
He's back.
And for not only getting himself locked up, but a handful of other Death Eaters as well. Since Voldemort couldn't punish Lucius, he came up with a way to punish his whole family. He gave Draco the impossible task of killing Dumbledore. Draco was made an official Death Eater that summer. He was to complete his mission while he went back to his 6th year of Hogwarts. Draco's mother Narcissa was a mess. Because of this, she reached out to Snape. Snape made the unbreakable vow, saying that he would help Draco on his mission, protect him, and finish the job if Draco couldn't do it himself. Draco's aunt Bellatrix also began to train him, teaching him occlumency so that he could close his mind to others trying to read it. Draco had come up with a plan. He remembered that Graham Montague had been pushed into a vanishing cabinet the following school year by Fred and George Weasley. Graham told Malfoy that he was trapped in limbo between the vanishing cabinet at Hogwarts and its twin at Borgin and Burke's before he disapparated to escape. Draco put this together and realized that they formed a passageway from the shop to Hogwarts. His plan was to use them to have Death Eaters enter the school. While in Diagon Alley, Harry and Ron pulled their wands out on Malfoy after he called Hermione a mudblood, and Draco's mother threatened their lives if they touched her son. Draco would later slip away from his mother and go to Borgin and Burke's. Here he spoke to Borgin and told him to keep the vanishing cabinet in the shop safe. He then asked him how to fix his twin at Hogwarts. When Borgin said that the job was impossible without seeing it, Draco showed him his dark mark, the mark of a Death Eater. This frightened Borgin very much. Malfoy then told him that Fenrir Greyback, an old family friend and a vicious werewolf, would be stopping in from time to time to make sure that he was giving the problem his full attention. Malfoy was a bit upset when he wasn't invited to Slughorn's Slug Club, where he chose the kids with the most connections and brightest futures. Zabini told him that he wasn't interested in Death Eaters. Malfoy then went on a rant about how much he hated Hogwarts and how he might not be back the following year. During the journey on the train, Malfoy had seen Harry slip into their compartment under the invisibility cloak, and later heard Harry wince when he got hit in the head by luggage. When everyone left, he hit Harry with a spell that made him paralyzed. He then stomped on his face, breaking his nose.
That's for my father.
That year, Draco acted out of character when he didn't go on his prefect duty. He normally loved using that power to bully others. He also fell behind on homework, which got him detention, and he started taking less of an interest in Quidditch, skipping practices, and even games. This was all because he spent most of his time trying to fix the vanishing cabinet, but he was having little to no luck. He had Crabbe and Goyle use Polyjuice Potion to turn into all different people so that they could be his lookouts as he fixed the cabinet in the Room of Requirement. Draco didn't tell them what he was doing, despite them asking on multiple occasions. He began to think that he wasn't ever going to fix it. Because of this, he tried other means to complete his mission to kill Dumbledore. He put the Imperius Curse on Madame Rosmerta, the owner of the 3 broomsticks. He then gave her a cursed necklace and ordered her to have a student bring it to Dumbledore, but it never reached him, as Katie Bell, the person that she made deliver it, touched the necklace. This led to Katie being hospitalized for a long time, but she survived. He later tried to poison Dumbledore with a bottle of mead. Again, he used Rosmerta to do the work for him by putting the poison in a bottle that Slughorn bought, which he intended to give to Dumbledore for Christmas. Slughorn, however, never got around to giving him the gift. Malfoy's stress level was higher than ever. He had dark shadows under his eyes and distinctly grayish skin. Snape had been trying to help Draco all year, but Draco was avoiding him. He didn't want Snape to interfere with his plan or take credit for it. When Snape finally confronted him, he told Draco about the unbreakable vow that he had made.
I swore to protect you. I don't need protection. I was chosen. This is my moment.
One day, Malfoy was confiding in Moaning Myrtle while crying. Tell me what's wrong, I can help. No one can help me. I can't do it. I can't. It won't work. And unless I do it soon, he says he'll kill me. Harry walked in on this, and the two began to duel. Draco got hit by a vicious spell. Blood spurted from Malfoy's face and chest as though he had been slashed with an invisible sword. His face was now shining scarlet, his white hand scrabbling at his blood-soaked chest. Luckily, Snape came in and saved Draco's life. When Malfoy got better, he successfully fixed the vanishing cabinet and celebrated very loudly while in the Room of Requirement. Draco put his plan into motion and got the Death Eaters into the castle. He got past the DA by using instant darkness powder, and he split up from the other Death Eaters as he went after Dumbledore. He disarmed him. An important fact for later.
Draco, you are no assassin.
How do you know what I am?
done things that would shock you.
Malfoy had waited all year to be in this exact situation, but as he stood in front of the man that he was supposed to kill, he couldn't do it.
I have to do this. I have to kill you. He's gonna kill me.
Draco began to lower his wand, feeling defeated, helpless. He sprung back up, however, when he heard the Death Eaters coming. When Draco couldn't follow through, Snape stepped in and fulfilled the unbreakable vow that he had made to Draco's mother. Snape led Draco out with the other Death Eaters as they fled the school grounds. After that, Voldemort released all of the Death Eaters that were imprisoned, including Lucius, Draco's father. Draco was now part of the official Death Eater ranks, but the Malfoy family was disgraced by all other Death Eaters. Voldemort had forced them to give up their manor as headquarters for his new base of operations. During one meeting, Voldemort humiliated Lucius by taking his wand. During that same meeting, Voldemort asked Draco what he thought of his first cousin, Nymphadora Tonks, having a baby with the werewolf, Remus Lupin. Draco looked at his father, who was pathetically staring down at his own lap, then caught his mother's eye, who shook her head before looking away quickly. Voldemort did not wait for his answer and continued on. Voldemort had the Muggle Studies teacher, Professor Burbage, from Hogwarts, suspended in the air. He asked Draco if he recognized her, and Draco shook his head. Voldemort then killed her, something that deeply shocked Draco. Draco went back to school for his 7th and final year of Hogwarts. When he came home for Easter holiday, some Snatchers along with Greyback brought Harry, Ron, and Hermione to Malfoy Manor. Harry, however, had a swollen face, courtesy of Hermione, to hide his identity. They asked Draco to tell them if it was really him. Draco's father put a lot of pressure on him, knowing that if they were the ones to hand Harry over to Voldemort, they would be back in his favor.
Everything would be forgiven. All will be as it was, you understand?
Draco, however, said that he couldn't be sure, and when Lucius pressured him even more, he said, "I don't know." When he was later asked about Ron and Hermione, he hesitated and said maybe, but he wasn't sure. It was clear to the trio that he was deliberately protecting them, as Ron and Hermione had no disguise.
Why didn't you tell her? Bellatrix. You knew it was me. You didn't say anything.
When Bellatrix saw that the Snatchers had the Sword of Gryffindor, she attacked them. She then commanded Draco to either kill or drag the Snatchers' bodies away. Narcissa and Bellatrix got into an argument about this. Later on, the trio, along with a few others, escaped, and in the chaos, Harry overpowered Draco and took his wand. Before this, Draco had been the master of the Elder Wand, one of the Deathly Hallows, because he had disarmed the previous owner, Albus Dumbledore, the night that he died. But now that Harry had overpowered Malfoy, he was no longer the rightful owner of the Elder Wand, or even his own wands, as Harry had won that wand's allegiance as well.
This was the wand of Draco Malfoy. I sense his allegiance has changed.
When Voldemort found out that Harry was at Hogwarts, he and all of the Death Eaters went to the castle, where the Battle of Hogwarts took place. To keep him safe, Draco's mother gave him her wands. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle followed Harry, Ron, and Hermione into the Room of Requirement, intending to bring Harry to Voldemort themselves. They were hoping that they would be rewarded for this. Crabbe and Goyle, both of whom used to worship Draco, turned on him. "I don't take your orders no more, Draco. You and your dad are finished." Crabbe disobeyed Malfoy and went after the trio, and a fight broke out. Crabbe then started a huge, uncontrollable fire that spread throughout the entire room. Crabbe was killed in the fire, engulfed by the flames that he had created. Malfoy and Goyle got out thanks to Harry, Ron, and Hermione saving them. Draco no longer had a wand. He was defenseless for the rest of the battle. Draco and Goyle fled from the trio. Meanwhile, Lucius pleaded with Voldemort to call off the battle. "My lord, please, my son." Voldemort said that it was not his fault if his son was dead, as he didn't join him with the rest of the Slytherins. Draco ran into another Death Eater who had his wand pointed at him. "I'm Draco Malfoy. I'm Draco. I'm on your side." The trio was passing under the invisibility cloak, and Harry stunned the Death Eater. Malfoy looked around confused until Ron punched him under the invisibility cloak, making him fall over on the other Death Eater. When Voldemort asked Narcissa to see if Harry was dead, after he had hit him with the killing curse, Narcissa realized that Harry was still alive. She asked him if Draco was alright.
"Is he alive? Draco, is he alive?"
And Harry nodded yes. Because of this act, Narcissa lied to Voldemort and all of the other Death Eaters, saying that Harry was dead. When the battle began again, Lucius and Narcissa were running through the crowd, not even attempting to fight, screaming out Draco's name. They finally found him, and after the battle, the three sat in the Great Hall, huddled together, as the others celebrated their victory. They seemed unsure whether or not they were supposed to be there, but nobody was paying them any attention. Unlike most of the other Death Eaters, Draco, Lucius, and Narcissa avoided going to Azkaban due to their last-minute switch of allegiance. Draco eventually married Astoria Greengrass. The two had a son named Scorpius Malfoy. Being raised by his parents was a damaging experience, and he underwent dreadful trials as a direct result of his family's misguided principles. But deep down, he always had some good in him. We saw this multiple times, when he lowered his wand, when he didn't rat out the trio to his parents and aunt, and eventually, we saw it in the way he raised his son. Lucius and Narcissa had a change of heart as well. It's clear that they realized that family comes first before everything else, a lesson that took them a while to figure out, having spent most of their lives so focused on blood purity, social status, and money. However, the family always had a saving grace: they love each other. In the end, all three of the Malfoys grew so much, and they realized that even if they lose everything, they will always have each other. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button to help grow the channel. You can follow me on social media, links are in the description, and look out for more great videos on the way.